Open a can of fruit. Peaches, pears, mandarin oranges, fruit cocktail. Every one of them sits in the same thick golden syrup. Tip the can. Pour it off. Keep the fruit. Added sugar. That's what it looks like. But take the syrup away before the can gets sealed, and the fruit falls apart, shrinks, collapses, turns into mush. The syrup isn't flavoring. It's the only reason the fruit holds its shape inside the can. And some of the fruit in there has never been sold fresh. Varieties bred only for canning. They don't exist in any produce aisle. They never have. And now the orchards that grew them are being ripped out of the ground. In 1795, the French government posted a prize of 12,000 francs for anyone who could preserve food for Napoleon's army. Nicolas Appert, a confectioner in Paris, spent 14 years experimenting with champagne bottles. Cork them shut. Boil them in water. Meat, vegetables, fruit. Some jars lasted years. In 1809, he claimed the prize and published the first book on modern food preservation. He was completely wrong about why it worked. Appert believed air caused spoilage. Pasteur wouldn't prove that germs were the real cause for another 50 years. The entire canning industry launched on a correct method built on the wrong theory. Peter Durand patented the tin can in England that same year. By the 1870s, California's canning industry was booming. Inside it, one variety of peach mattered more than any other: clingstone. The flesh grips the pit. Sweeter, juicier than freestone. The kind sold fresh, but nearly impossible to slice by hand. Bred only for processing, never sold fresh. Next time you open a can of peaches, that's clingstone. It only exists because the can does. Fruit cocktail came from waste. Too much damaged fruit and no place to dump the scraps. Dice the good parts, mix them, sell them. The FDA mandated exact proportions. Peaches 30 to 50%, pears 25 to 45, cherries 2 to 6, 2 to 6%. That's why there are never enough. But the cherry is garnish. The real story is what happens to the fruit before the lid goes on. The fruit arrives at peak ripeness. Peaches golden orange, pears heavy and fragrant, pineapples cut the day they come out of the field. Pacific Coast producers in Lodi, California harvest its peaches within a 16-mile radius. Field to can in under 5 hours. High-pressure water jets and bubble washers strip dirt, leaves, and pesticide residue off the fruit. It tumbles through curtains of water, white foam swirling below the belt. Then the skin comes off with sodium hydroxide. Same chemical in drain cleaner and pretzel dough. Peaches and pears pass through a bath of boiling lye for 30 to 60 seconds. The skin loosens and slips right off. The flesh underneath stays firm. A quick rinse washes away every trace. Mandarin oranges skip the lye entirely. A mild acid bath dissolves the white skin between each segment, leaving clean, separated slices. Pineapple arrives pre-peeled by a machine that cores and shells the fruit in one motion. Different fruit, different path to clean flesh ready for the can. Peaches get halved by a splitting machine along the seam line. Pit flies out, pears get cored and sliced. Pineapple gets cut into rings or chunks. For fruit cocktail, everything diced to regulation size. Sorting cameras scan each piece for size, color, and defects. Workers pull anything damaged off the belt. Then the syrup, hot sugar water, roughly 90 degrees Celsius, pours over the fruit in clean metal cans. This isn't sweetness. When the can hits high heat, the juice inside the fruit wants to escape. Without anything pushing back, it does. The fruit shrinks, collapses, turns to mush. The sugar water surrounding each piece is dense enough to keep that juice from leaving. It pushes back, shape holds, texture holds. Without it, soggy mass. The syrup also spreads heat evenly through the can and fills the gaps between the fruit, pushing out air so the color lasts. Air gets evacuated before the lid seals. Internal vacuum keeps the can from bulging under heat. Sealed cans go into a retort, a massive steel pressure chamber running on steam. Fruit gets a quiet advantage here. It's naturally acidic, and the bacterium that causes botulism can't survive in acid. So fruit needs less heat than meat or vegetables, roughly 100 degrees Celsius for 20 to 35 minutes. Meat needs 121 degrees for up to 100 minutes. That's why canned fruit stays soft instead of cooking to paste. Water sprays cool the cans to 38 degrees. Labels, cases, warehouses. Shelf life 12 to 18 months. Safe well beyond that if the can stays intact. Wash it, peel it, put it in sugar water, heat the can. Appert figured that out 200 years ago. Champagne bottles, and a theory that was completely wrong. Open 2 cans of peaches side by side. One in heavy syrup, one in juice pack. The heavy syrup peach lifts out clean. Firm edges, smooth surface, holds its half-moon shape on a spoon. The juice pack peach is softer. The edges fray. Set it on a plate and it sags. 5 FDA syrup grades exist, from water pack with no added sugar up to extra heavy above 35%. Heavy syrup was the standard for decades, not because anyone wanted sweeter fruit. More sugar in the liquid means more support for the fruit when the can gets blasted with heat. The sweetness is a side effect. The shift toward light syrup and juice pack is real, but the trade-off is visible the moment you open the can. Every can of fruit has a thin coating on the inside, a protective layer that keeps the metal from reacting with the acid in the fruit. Without it, the can corrodes and the fruit tastes like tin. That coating contains BPA, bisphenol A, and the acid it's meant to block is exactly what causes BPA to seep into the syrup. The more acidic the fruit, the more it leaches. Fruit is one of the most acidic things you can put in a can. In 2023, European regulators slashed the safe limit for BPA by a factor of 20,000. The EU then banned it in all food packaging. But canned fruit got a special extension to 2028 because nobody has found a replacement coating that handles fruit acid without breaking down. The can protects the fruit. The fruit eats away at the can from the inside. And nobody has solved that yet. The US FDA hasn't changed its position. In 2026, a major fruit cannery in California's Central Valley closed permanently. More than 140 years of operations ended. 765 jobs gone. No buyer came forward to keep the plant running. Clingstone peaches have no fresh market. They were bred only for the cannery. When it disappeared, the USDA approved $9 million to help farmers pull up about 420,000 trees before the next harvest. A fruit bred to exist only inside a can, with no can left to go into. One cannery remains in the valley. The orchards that still have contracts keep picking. The rest are bare dirt. The fruit was engineered to survive inside a can. The syrup was engineered to keep the fruit intact. The lining was engineered to keep the acid from eating the metal. 200 years of engineering, all inside something that costs under $2. Nobody had a reason to look into any of this, until the orchards started disappearing. A can of fruit in the cupboard, golden syrup inside, maybe one of the last cans packed at a factory that ran for 140 years. This time, don't pour it out. That's the process. We reveal how things actually work, one story at a time. If there's something you'd like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.